friends, Jewel back with another super cool astrology video. I want to talk about the composite Pluto on the Descendant. What happens when we see this? So composite charts or Davidson charts are midpoint charts where we find the mathematical midpoints between all the planets, and it gives us a really good sense of how you two function as a unit, how you blend. So the synastry is the ingredients that you bring to the table, and the composite is the actual cake that you bake up with those ingredients. So when we have Pluto, which is how a couple mutually deals with change, how do they deal with the undercurrents that psychologically actually control us? The things that we repress and don't address, they actually run us around. And so how do the two people deal with this in the context of their relationship? And when we have it on the Descendant, which is how do we deal with other people and what is going on in the context of the relationship itself, it's a really significant placement. It's significant to have it on any angle, especially on the Ascendant or the Descendant. And they're actually really similar, except the Descendant is more unconscious between the two of us, and it has more to do with stirring up or arousing difficulties or obstinance or opposition in other people. There's something about the two of you that pisses other people off, or that has to do with the undercurrent of society, or that could have a lot to do with police involvement, or if we have a lot of other stuff, not even a lot of other stuff, but if we have the other right things going on in the synastry and the composite chart, can be talking about having to do with a certain amount of violence, and then we're having to, we're stirring up difficulties that way. It's not a violent aspect in itself. You're not going to see most relationships have a, physically violent current to them if they have this particular aspect. That's more common if it's on the Ascendant or the midheaven. And we have to have other things going on. It's not going to be automatic by any stretch of the imagination that it's going to be a violent relationship. What it's going to be is a psychologically violent relationship, meaning that it's going to force us into a certain amount of self-acceptance. It's going to force us into changes, because we cannot let each other be as we are with this particular aspect. We cannot do it. This is not a meditative relationship, okay? There's nothing easy about it when we have Pluto on the Descendant. It's because we're constantly pushing and pulling each other into these. It's almost like we're constantly pushing and pulling the crap out of each other, meaning the stuff that we don't want to deal with, the refuse of our lives, the psychological things that we have yet to deal with. So we're causing in each other a constant purge. It's kind of the ayahuasca relationship here. It's very karmic. We can't allow each other to be at peace because there's this way that we're causing each other to puke up our vasanas, to puke up our past, to deal with the things that are yet undealt with. And that's not for everybody. A lot of people don't like it. They're in relationships because they want Ozzy and Harriet, and their expectation is that the relationship is not going to challenge me. It's going to be a soft place to fall all the time. There's always going to be understanding there. It's not going to be something that's going to put any amount of difficulty into my life. It's something that is going to take all the difficulties away from my life, because that's not what relationships are like. Okay, if that's where you're coming from, because that is not what relationships do, not real relationships, Soulmates are the ones that actually challenge us the most. They're the ones that ask the most of us and that typically spark the most changes and the most growth within us. This is one where we are going to transform each other in a way that's very rare and very priceless. And it's like we're needing each other, like a baker needs dough until it's ready for something else. It's changed. It's gone from just the ingredients into those ingredients combining in such a way that it's now elastic. And that's what we get if we're really taking advantage of this. We go from rigidity to elasticity. We do eventually get to a place where we allow each other to be as we are. Because when we can do that, that's when this particular aspect reveals itself to be the miraculous combining that it really is. Until you can get to where you can meet your own fears with this particular combining, there will always be this push-pull between each other to get each other to do that. So we have to individually meet our fears where they are. There can't be any running from it or avoidance of it. It's in the meeting of it that it dissipates. And that's what we're unconsciously forcing each other to do. So, again, this relationship is not for everybody. If you are highly Plutonic, you're probably going to like it because it's going to have that challenge that you're looking for. And, you know, Pluto gives us this idea or this belief in difficulty, in challenge. This one's going to be right up your alley. So it's personal transformation through a process of kneading each other like bread dough, and kneading also like I need you. That is also an element of this relationship. Kneading and needing are both elements of this relationship because Pluto is attachment. It's our deepest attachment. And there is a deep attachment when we have this one on the Descendant. We're attached to each other in the context of the relationship. So it's one where there's a lot of investment in each other. And where we find investments and attachments, we find difficulties. Because there is such a belief in a certain outcome. So when we can learn to have a more meditative approach to this relationship, when we can let it evolve as it will, and there can be much less what is the word? Goading of each other. That's when it really gets beautiful between the two of you. That typically happens after a certain amount of interaction in the difficult phase, in the causing each other to see that you're dealing with your own stuff. And it's through this relationship that it's really coming out. Usually we have to get to that point where we see that. And then we can transform that into something else, because this is about transformation of the relationship. And if you don't quit, and sometimes you should, when this is on the Descendant, you have to really carefully evaluate this one. Sometimes where Pluto's concerned, we have to cut our losses because it's a lot like having an open wound and having to make that decision, okay, am I going to butterfly this at home here and take care of this, meaning am I going to be able to stay in the relationship? Or is it just too vast of a wound? I need to take myself down to the ER, meaning I need to get myself the hell out of the relationship because I can't stop the bleeding. There's always going to be that decision in platonic relationships, and this is most likely going to be a platonic relationship. So if you do remain in it and get to that place of being able to meet your fears, and a lot of, being able to meet the fears is meeting your fears in the context of losing the relationship. That can be a big one. Really getting to that place where you see that and you experience that for what it is, and is it something that is going to destroy you, or is it a figment of your fears, and that is why you're holding on so hard to each other. It's sometimes you have to get to that experience of loss to get to the other side of figuring out, why are we together? Is it because we're do we want to be in a relationship where we're just causing each other so many difficulties? And is that something that in the broader context of the relationship is healthy? Sometimes it is. Sometimes you can have platonic relationships that have otherwise very healthy connections, and this is something that is healthy because it is a constant purge that puts you in a position where then you can regain your health equilibrium here. Sometimes that's not what's going on. You do have to look at the natal charts when you have a strong Pluto in the composite chart and see, okay, are these people together just to rip each other to shreds? Or do we have two people here that are very basically interested in delving into and changing their own psychology, and they are relatively stable, and they have come together for the process of causing each other to become better people through the process of Pluto? Or do we have Sid and Nancy Vicious that are together just so they can delve into their worst aspects of each other and end up in a very abusive, unhealthy relationship? You gotta evaluate here when you have Pluto in such a prominent position. It's not gonna come all from the composite chart, the deciding factors of what are these people doing together. You have to go back and look at the history of the natal charts. It's going to give you a lot of info as to why they're attracted to this particular relationship. So this one basically is about forced transformation between two people, and we're not letting each other be as we are until we're letting each other be as we are. It's a complex relationship when we have this. It's going to be multidimensional and multi-layered and psychologically important. Pluto on a composite angle typically represents one of those relationships that is so emotionally impactful and psychologically impactful that it changes us in such a way that other relationships have a different tone. Hopefully that's what we want anyway, because we don't want to wash, rinse, and repeat, right? So they are important relationships, even if they are not forever relationships, even if they are not the kind of relationships that are healthy enough for us to choose to remain in. They are still very important and passionate. So careful evaluation is always in order when we have this position or Pluto in another very prominent position in a natal chart. But deep personal transformation through the process of the relationship is basically what we have here. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe to my channel. And you can find me on the internet at truthandaspectastrology.com, social media, Facebook, Instagram at Truth and Aspect Astrology. I am mainly a relationship and intimacy astrologer, but I interpret all types of charts under the sun. And please find me on Patreon, because I am trying to get the support together for my women's retreat, where I will be teaching classes and helping women to reconnect with their feelings, themselves, and ultimately their higher selves through horses, astrology, esoteric teaching, and all kinds of other fun stuff, nature. And I will be back super soon with more super cool videos. Bye-bye.